Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya, Josh McCuistion down at the Soonerscoop.com Houston studios. And why not? This is a big kind of a, I guess, not celebration by any means, but it is a coming off of a big Oklahoma victory at the Cotton Bowl, 34-30. It is going to be a game that is, I think, remembered in Oklahoma history and Oklahoma football lore for a long, long time. You talk about the goal line stand, you talk about the final drive, everything that kind of culminated with a celebration down there in the, what would that be, southeast corner of the Cotton Bowl on Saturday. George, we did our instant reaction, which I know has been viewed quite a few times here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. Make sure that you are subscribed. And we figured, why not? Let's bring in Josh today to kind of wrap up the events that were down in Dallas and what is a marquee victory in Brent Venables' 19th career game as Oklahoma's head coach. Josh, welcome in. A memorable Cotton Bowl it was on Saturday.
Oh, guys, I wasn't prepared. I thought we were talking UCF this whole thing.
I'm totally we're going to get to the preview show here shortly, but why not spend a little bit more time on what was an incredible, I guess, come-from-behind victory, but a game that, you know, Josh, when we talked about this OU-Texas game going in, it was going to be what can Dylan Gabriel do, and can Oklahoma's defensive line and offensive line be physical enough to move the line of scrimmage and then create problems for Quinn Ewers? And sure enough, I mean, both boxes checked.
That is perfectly said, Eddie. Like, we all talked about can Dylan Gabriel handle this moment, and I mean, the game-winning drive. I mean, one of the drives that OU fans are going to talk about for 40 years. The play he just made in that game. That was so clutch and unbelievable, and especially when it was really, pardon my soccer parlance here, but kind of against the flow of play. Like there was nothing that indicated Oklahoma was ready to go make that drive. With everything that had happened in the fourth quarter, really Texas had dominated that game. You wondered if Oklahoma had just kind of hit their tank was just empty. That's what it felt like a little bit to me. The defense had been on the field so long, the offense had never gotten into a rhythm, and then he just takes them down the field. I mean, and made it look really easy. The Walter Rouse play is one of those things that's going to be like oh yeah, people talk about the drive, but do you remember the block by Walter Rouse?
Sure.
Like that's going to be one of those little prove you're a better OU fan than the guy next to you kind of things 20 years from now. So, but yeah, and then the defensive front, guys. I mean, we talked about the Texas front, and don't get me wrong, I think that's still a really good group. Oklahoma had the best defensive line on the field on Saturday, and I don't even think it's an argument. I don't know that I can explain why that's the case, but they, of the four line units, I thought they were the best of the four.
The play that Ethan Downs had just throughout the game, getting after Quinn Ewers, he had the pair of sacks. It was truly incredible. And, I think the play that probably gets lost on a lot of people, and it was one that George and I were talking about before we got started here. We talked about it leaving the Cotton Bowl on Saturday, George. The sack in the fourth quarter on the final Texas possession, or the second to last Texas possession that led to the go-ahead field goal, that kind of reconfigured, I think, what Texas was trying to do, because you got it behind the sticks, and then all of a sudden they got ultra-conservative and almost said, okay, we're going to just settle for the field goal.
And it was interesting that it was, and we just saw DJ Terry make a play there, but it was guys that they went out and got in the portal, other than Ethan Downs, right? I mean, DJ Terry was great. Jacob Lacey, we hadn't heard his name a bunch, but he'd been getting starts. He comes up with the sack you're referencing there, Eddie, as Josh, it looks like, has got a visitor maybe. But, Jacob Lacey was awesome. It was funny. I was talking to my dad after the game, and he was walking out of the stadium with Jacob Lacey's dad. I guess they sat very close to each other, and he was very emotional and was talking about the game and was trying to figure out where he could find his son. And my dad was kind of like, oh, the tunnel's over this way, and kind of walked with him over there. But he was talking about what a special game, what a special atmosphere. But that's what's so cool is for some of those guys and so many different transfers that came in to Oklahoma and made an impact in this game. You think Deshaun McCullough helped out on the goal line stand. But yeah, that defensive line was really special on Saturday. And Ethan Downs deserves some flowers, man. We've all given him some criticism over the years, and he didn't have his best year last year, but he has been maybe OU's best defensive end this year.
Really good. I have a feeling Josh was maybe possibly talking and was muting himself there. if you would like to jump in, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do apologize. I have kids playing in the backyard. We have a school off day, and
We love that.
they were all aware of the situation. And then literally the moment we start recording,
Perfect.
everybody wants to talk to Dad again.
Well, Lainey just wants to get back on the big screen. She knows that she's a star.
Yeah.
When the light goes on in the office, she knows that's when it's time to walk in.
She's a little bitter about that, Eddie. You guys are there's gonna be a conversation when she sees you next. There's no question. But no, the thing, and again, I will be fully honest, heard bits and pieces of what George was talking about, but the thing that stood out to me is guys like, and I've been one that has been a big purveyor of this, that you can't build your line of scrimmage play out of the portal. And I mean, and again, George may have just covered this. His face is not giving it away. I'm not sure if I'm covering ground that has been covered, but like you look and it's just amazing, all the pieces. And it's like, I honestly am shocked it played out the way it did, because I thought at times Oklahoma would have trouble. They'd get gashed a little bit. And Jonathan Brooks had the late big run. And I think that's one of the stories. Jonathan Brooks is really good, really, really good. And kind of almost concerns me that he wasn't Texas's opening day starter, if that was a motivation thing. Like, I don't know what it was, but they've found something in him, and he's going to be a good one. But I know OU fans don't want to hear that crap. But again, just looking at 3 transfer offensive linemen, multiple transfers on the defensive line, like, just it amazes me what Oklahoma has put together. And then when you think, obviously for me, recruiting brain, you look at what they're doing on the defensive line recruiting and thinking, this can be so much better than it already is. Like, and that's no insult to these guys. These are just more, the guys that are being recruited right now, they're just on a different level as far as their physical upside and the places they can go. And it's impressive. And it's again, Eddie, like, how we need to come up with some sort of shorts for a victory lap for Todd Bates.
Sure.
For all the people that even like earlier this year were still doubting Todd Bates. And now you're like, this is what we were talking about. Like, this guy's really good, and there's no way to refute it.
It was one of the better just defensive performances. I mean, they get the 7 points off of the block punt to hold that offense, which, George, we both talked about this after the game. Texas is really good. Like, I think Texas is extremely good. Just physically, they're big guys. And that almost makes it even more impressive what Oklahoma was able to do in holding them to the 23 points. They didn't really Quinn Ewers' numbers were just insane after the game. 31 of 36 for 346. He had the 2 turnovers, but after the second turnover down in the red zone, he was extremely good.
Yeah. I'm sorry,
Josh.
I didn't know where we were going with that. But no, I am the thing that was, you could tell in the second half he really found a rhythm. Like,
right.
He looked so much cleaner. They found some things. That RPO game, they really went away from the drop back. I'm kind of going through the idiot right now. And in the first quarter, you can tell Texas thought they were just going to be able to drop back and he was going to make throws and pick Oklahoma apart. And then as you saw, they were like, we've got to influence these linebackers. We've got to move the safeties around because we can't just line up and beat this front, and their corners are doing too much. You guys, the first 2 plays of the game, Woody Washington blows up a bubble, and then Gentry Williams intercepts a pass. Like, there's a conversation where Oklahoma's got like a top 5 or 6 corner tandem in the country right now. Like, and that they're playing at that level, and that's crazy. I thought this would be a good group, and I know we all kind of believed in Gentry, but the way he's come on, the level, the experience, the kind of old veteran that Woody Washington is, they're getting just outstanding play. And guys, and did that last week just so, as we know, so shorthanded. No Kenai Walker, Makari Vickers wasn't available. Josiah Wagner, I don't think they wanted to run him out there even if he was technically good to go. So, there were a lot of problems at the cornerback, and they just found a way, just kept making plays.
I was shocked when Gentry Williams exits the game. All of a sudden, you look up, Key Lawrence is playing cornerback. I was shocked that Texas didn't try to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and they did find some stuff in the passing game when Gentry came out, and it was some short stuff that really got OU in some trouble. But I noticed, too, though, they took Key out and put Kendall Dolby in there, I think, towards the end of that final drive. So, and I think they wanted Key at safety as well. Key had been playing pretty well at safety throughout the game. But they need to get healthy at that spot for sure, because when Gentry went out, it was, I mean, he was playing one of the best games of his career. But I think the other thing too to note, we talked about the transfers. Think about how many guys that were on this defense a year ago that are just playing that much better. I mean, the development of Danny Stutzman, we all know, but even Jaron Kanek seems like he's getting better every single week. Billy Bowman, we've always known is a great player, and I think that was one of the more underrated things in last year's game. He didn't play, and again, he doesn't make up for all the 49 points, but he was their best defensive player last year. He comes up with a huge play in this game. He was really good. You think about Woody Washington, how much better he's gotten over the last year. Ethan Downs, we mentioned. It's incredible to see not only the influx of guys they brought in from the portal, or true freshman Peyton Bowen was fantastic, but also just guys that have bought into whatever Brent is selling and have gotten that much better.
Yeah, you talk about, just a pure example of how far this defense has come. Look how they play out on the perimeter. And Josh, you just noted it with what they are doing right now in defending the screen game. Woody Washington, Gentry Williams, no matter who it may be out there on the outside, they work their ass off. Those are turning into tackles for losses instead of just holding on for dear life and hoping you get somebody down.
Yeah, I mean, that bubble, guys, he's beating Jatavion Sanders. Who is – and it's not like he just lined up over him. Jatavion Sanders is in motion on that first play and has Woody he just basically gets to time it up perfectly. And, I mean, it's well designed by Sark, and Woody just kind of steps back and moves around him. Now, Jatavion Sanders was not himself. You could tell he didn't move right. And, it almost felt wrong for him to be out there. That was just a shadow of the guy that I know he's capable of being. But still, just to make that play was unbelievable, and we've seen it over and over again this year. But the thing, and I just put something up in the Idiot, the thing I noticed, guys, when you watch anything near the sidelines, those pursuit drills that we watch every high school team in history make, where they blow the whistle, the ball's here, everybody tracks, and you kind of find your angle up the field to make sure it's, not any bigger than it has to be. That's what it looks like. It's almost textbook watching those guys, because you go back and watch that first play. Woody makes the play, Bowman comes down, cleans it up, and then behind him, McCullough's about 3 yards up the field, and Kanek's about 3 yards up the field, and McCullough's coming in behind that about 5 or 6 yards. They're just taking good angles to the ball. They're finding their way through trash, and there's a reason that they're tackling so much better in space, because they know, okay, this is my responsibility. I've got to flush him inside at least. If I can't get him down, I've got to force him back to my pursuit. And it seems obvious, but it's fundamental good football that we know hasn't been played in a long time.
Maybe the best example of that is the goal line stand. I mean, those 4 plays, you're seeing guys, group tackle. It wasn't just one guy making a play. Now, the fourth down, I mean, even the fourth down one, Billy Bowman makes the initial hit. It's Deshaun McCullough that makes that tackle too, that keep him out of the end zone. So, I mean, the goal line stand, I don't know, Eddie, if we want to get into all of that stuff.
Here it is right here. I mean, you talk about 4 plays, and I know that Bob wrote about it today on the website. You talk about 4 plays that kind of epitomize what this defensive turnaround has become. It truly changed the dynamic of the start of that fourth quarter, and I think that it just kind of shows how far this thing has come along. And not to mention, as you just saw there, you have a guy in Kip Lewis who I believe you said
3 snaps.
PFF he played 3 snaps.
3 snaps.
And 2 of them are right here in 2 of the biggest, most important plays of the game.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. He comes through the gap on the first one, which we've seen time and again him do, but to do it in this moment and make this play, I mean, look at him shoot the gap there. He's going to be an awesome player, man. He's one of those guys you want to see him get on the field more. But, I mean, it just, again, that speaks to their competitive depth. But I can't remember what happens on who gets the second one. Is it McCullough on the second one?
Well, McCullough takes on Tavondre Sweat, who's coming downhill. And I'm sorry, it's Byron Murphy coming in motion at him and just stacks it up. And you're like, that's a 300-pound guy. And McCullough just takes the fight to him. You can see, boom, right there. You can see that hit. Slows him down. Brooks has to shuffle step. And then that's McCullough right there. I mean, that's, guys, I know we're on to the next play, but you look that Lewis play, it reminds me of a running back. You know how they'll talk about, he gets skinny through the hole. Kip Lewis does that. All of a sudden, he just finds a way and he's through a hole. And I mean, he's so quick and explosive, and he sees it.
And that's just something that can't be taught, right?
And
Josh,
no,
that's just a guy that when you talk about, I think Brent Venables, the quote that was out there on him, it might have been after the SMU game. I think the exact quote was, he's a ball magnet. Like, he just finds the football and finds ways to make plays.
Guys, I mean, Jaron Kanik led Oklahoma in tackles, and I'll hear the argument that Danny Stutzman should be your Mike and Kip Lewis should be your Will. Like, I mean, and that's not a shot at Jaron. I just think, I mean, there's a few guys every year that I am all in on, and Kip Lewis, I could not be more all in on what he does and what he brings to that defense.
The third play was Danny, wasn't it? It was Danny,
he just goes
McCullough.
Unblocked.
Yeah.
Like, nobody touches Danny, and he fills the hole. And that's, when you start talking about like a Butkus linebacker, I'm sure that there's a bunch of players that can make that play in college football, but to do it at the extent that Danny does in the position that he was.
And there's McCullough again too.
And that reminded me of one of those plays that we saw them run, because they run this, and you'll hear the guys talking about here in a little bit. They run this goal line defense when we're out at practice, all the way back in March. Remember when Deshaun McCullough made the play?
Yeah.
Way back during the spring, it was almost the exact same type of scenario.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting to hear that too, because it's like we talked about. We'll get into the final drive as well, but they practiced that during the week too. So I'm sure they practiced this exact scenario. And then the fourth down, I thought they for sure were going to get in when they first threw it. I was like, oh, that's a good play. And Billy Bowman just makes a nice play, and then McCullough's right there. I mean, it's just both of them read it perfectly. They knew exactly what was coming.
I'm with you, George. I saw him, and you were like, "There's no way. Worthy's so fast. Like, there's no way they close that." And then McCullough to get over as quick as he did, and just really make sure he couldn't get any momentum falling into the end zone. That's a huge play. What is funny is I heard Teddy talking about that Stutzman play at the goal line, and he called it a Bosworth tackle. We just squared the Brooks up and made the tackle. In one of the message board conversations on the Crimson Corner, somebody was talking about the goal line stand. I said, what does that even compare to? That's got to be the best goal line stand in a long time. And somebody mentioned 1984 Nebraska, so I found the video, went back and looked at it. In that goal line stand, Bosworth has a play just like that, where he slides into a hole and just stuffs a guy right in his stomach. Like, I mean, and
it's amazing.
It was just uncanny. You were like, that looks like Danny. That's almost the same play.
My dad was on the team for OU that year, and I brought it up to him because I asked that same question on Twitter. I was like, "What's the greatest stand?" And all my replies, 1984 Nebraska. My dad was telling me, he's like, it was like a replica, watching it on repeat, which is just crazy.
You might have to put
think.
those side by side.
I know. It's crazy to think. When was the last time OU had a stand like that defensively?
Well, and this
time.
was something that Ryan Chapman brought up this morning on the radio. What a play by Jaron Kanik to keep Jordan Whittington out of the end zone.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I so much into this game, man. There's so much stuff.
Crazy. Well, it was obviously a very excited post-game press conference. George, I know that you were there inside the Cotton Bowl's third floor, and here is Brent Venables and a number of guys just kind of talking about the win that was on Saturday.
They've had an aggressive mindset. We're playing physical, we're playing aggressive because of all their hard work. Certainly off the field, but they put a lot of time, on their own. And I've told these guys this several times that, leadership's going to drive this football team. At the end of the day, coaches can't play. Players decide on whether or not they want to be successful and whether or not they're willing to do what it takes. Now, I know what they're capable of, but what are they willing to do? And they've been the example. All these guys up here have been the example. Danny's been an amazing leader. You asked about defense. He's been an amazing leader. As good a leader as I've been around. And he's imposed his will from a leadership standpoint, and he's drugged guys with him. All the while, he's remained incredibly humble and let you coach him hard. He knows he's not where he needs to be, but he's going to give you everything he's got, and he can go right back to work. That's this football team. They're not a satisfied football team, and so I love the competitiveness of this team, and but also the maturity and the humility that it takes, and the respect they have to be a great program. What it's going to take moving forward.
We practiced that. We're ready for it, and that was just our guts and our hearts pouring out, playing the game. Kudos to Texas. They're a great team. They're awesome, phenomenal team, very talented, and we just kept pushing. So an opportunity like that to get a goal line stop was really rewarding for us as a defense, proving a lot to us, and we're just buying in closer and closer together as a family.
First off, the coach did a tremendous job, game planning that exact scenario. We put together a perfect package for that situation. We had young guys like Kip Lewis come in who were ready to play. He was locked in, dialed in, and at the end of the day, a goal line situation like that, it comes down to heart. How bad someone wants it, how bad team can really come together and generate push. I think the guys up front did a tremendous job. All 4 snaps to really just give it all they got, 1 snap at a time, 1 second at a time. And guys like Kip Lewis, Jaron, Desan, and Billy, all those guys did a tremendous job. Just trusting their job, trusting their fit, and when they came in that gap, explode through it. And I think at the end of the day, that was the outcome that happened.
It reminds me a little bit of that 1999 to 2000. Just no offense to those guys back in the day, no offense to these guys, but I use the word, we were a bunch of misfits back in 2000. We didn't know how good we could be. And but man, that was a group. They were tough as all get out, and man, they were raggedy up. And they just came every day and went to work. And these guys have been exactly that. We're a little shinier in some spots than that group, but also I think the parallels are that you didn't know how good we could be, and what that team was committed to was just improving each and every day. The guys that were 2 best friends on the team that people didn't know was Torrance Marshall, our middle linebacker, and Josh Heupel, 2 guys from completely polar opposite ends of the earth. One from Dade County, Florida, and one from Aberdeen or somewhere up north in the farmland. And guys couldn't be more opposite as people. But man, those were the real fiber of our football team. And this is the team that has grown incredibly close over the last several months. But these guys have worked hard at that. Yet that didn't just happen. There's got to be a lot of intentionality. Relationships take a lot of work. We've challenged them. We've nurtured that. But for us to realize our potential and have an opportunity to be a great team, man, we got to be a team that knows each other, that loves each other, that understands the culture, and that defends the standard of excellence that this program is represented. And these guys have been amazing.
That seems to be very much a reoccurring theme with this Oklahoma football team. I think there is some genuine chemistry there. And, as I put on the Crimson Corner today, I don't know how much that means in the long, big, grand scheme of things, but it does mean something. And I think you're kind of seeing it come to fruition out on the field with some of the games that they lost a year ago, some of the close losses that they had. It probably did nothing but galvanize them a little bit, and you're starting to see this thing really come together.
Absolutely, guys. And I think that's why, obviously we've all had to eat a little crow, our Texas predictions over
sure.
in the lead up. I think that's why this team can be hard to fully grasp, like where they are and what they're at, because they're getting more out of their sum than is there in the parts. Like they are playing beyond what is there on paper. And it's not to say that there's not talent there. There absolutely is. But you look at some of it and it's young, or it's at the very least inexperienced. Like there's all these guys that are stepping. I mean, Kip Lewis has no reason being as useful as he is so far. I mean, like there's no explanation for that. Jaron Canick is a guy that, as much as people talk about him and, he was going to go to Clemson with Brent, guy had played almost no linebacker before he started college. Like, I mean, and that's, for Brent Venables, that is a massive learning curve, to learn under a guy like Brent. So there's just so much that doesn't make sense in terms of a basic math equation. Like, this equals this, and that's what that's going to be. But when you look at it a little bit more broad view, you're like, this team, there's a lot of fight. Because I think that's what I wrote in the report card. It was like, this team just fought. Every time they were in trouble or it looked like, okay, here's where Texas starts to really take the reins, they would just find a way to fight through it. And you're like, man, that's a quality kind of, one of the cliches right now in college football is that travels. That travels. I mean, that's something that no matter where you are, you can find a way through it if guys can stay together like they have so far this year.
George, that wasn't lost, I think, on either of us sitting in there. I mean, when you start talking about 99, 2000 and the memories that came with that turnover from that first year under Bob Stoops to, I think what everybody knows happens in 2000, that's starting to become like big boy talk. And I think that you're now halfway through the season. We can kind of almost a little bit start having these types of conversations as far as where this thing is going.
Yeah, look, they're in the college football playoff hunt, which, I think that coming into this year, we all agreed, hey, 10 wins would be a great season, right? 10 wins, get to the Big 12 championship game, maybe win it. Maybe you pull something off and you win the Big 12. That would be an awesome year. Now you're talking about running the table and winning the Big 12 and playing in the college football playoff. I know some people on the board are mad at me for, I still am not a believer that they can win the whole damn thing. But if they go run the table and they keep improving every single week, maybe they can. I don't know. But this is a team that now the ceiling is the college football playoff. It is reaching that point, and it's accelerated the process for Brent. And Josh, I think you bring up a really good point. It's the buy-in to what Brent is doing that I think is the most impressive to me. And you look at what happened last year. A lot of these guys could have been like, man, what are we doing? 6 and 7, things were falling apart. Game management was bad at times. They brought in some guys from the portal. It just didn't work out. They were playing some older guys that, were like, why is that guy on the field? There's a lot of faith and trust in Brent that he was going to do the right thing. You think of even the kids he recruited, the faith from a Peyton Bowen to come to Oklahoma, a PJ Adebawore to still come to Oklahoma and believe in what they're doing, and then to go out and get the guys that they got in the portal. That's the part you're like, man, we'll see what happens this year, and I expect Oklahoma to play in the Big 12 championship, and if they win it, great. If not, it's still a really successful year. They make the college football playoff, great, whatever. But the trajectory of the program and the buy-in from the players, that was the loudest thing that I took away from the game on Saturday is, man, they're like you said, Josh, they may not have all the parts, but man, they're exceeding expectations, and that's because of the buy-in from these guys.
Absolutely. And I just quickly, because I know we want to move on to some other things,
sure,
but I do want to say that, like, all the OU fans out there listening, don't move the goalposts. Like, 10-2 is still an outstanding season. If something happens and they don't go quite the way you see it now, don't turn that into, this all wasn't worth it, or this program is clearly moving in the right direction. Now, what happens from here? Again, the margin for error for this team, because like what we just talked about, the parts are not where we've seen them in years past, where they could just get up off the mat. Like they're going to have to play at a high level, because kind of like that 2000 team. I hate to keep making that comparison because it's a little unfair, but there's not enough elite guys on this roster to just fix a day where, this guy's a little off. Okay, this guy's going to pick us up and do it. It's got to be everybody kind of moving in the same direction. But if they can do that, I agree. I think the playoffs are possible. And guys, the most entertaining thing, you're going to get to watch Oklahoma, if that comes to pass, play in the playoff with a defense. Mm-hmm. We've never seen that. We don't even know what that looks like.
No doubt. Back down to Dallas we go. Brent Venables, Danny Stutzman, Ethan Downs, Andrew Rain, Billy Bowman talking about the big win at the Cotton Bowl.
I've coached, I don't know how long I've coached in the big scheme, but been in a whole bunch of really, really big games, and 15 of these. And this one takes a back seat. Doesn't take a back seat to any one of them. National championships, conference championships, just all the scenarios, the moments, the big plays, both sides of the ball. The things when your back's against the wall, your goal line stands, and Hail Marys into the end zone, a 2-minute drill to go 75 yards with no timeouts, the forced interceptions, to start the game. And they come out and they block a punt, and I love watching, young people respond and to believe. And our guys have an unshakable belief. I know that. Yeah, I think obviously when that scoreboard hits all zeros, that's when you really kind of soak it all in. In the moment when there's those big plays. Looking back last week we had that pick six, and I think we kind of got too overexcited.
I think, this week we've really settled down. After Gentry had that really great interception, we kept our poise. We said that's just one drive. We got a lot of game left. We got to keep going, keep attacking. I think our guys did a tremendous job, just focused. We were physical all day. I'm really proud of the guys up front. They really brought it every single snap. And what a great team effort, from both sides of the ball. Really played complementary football together.
I always try to play that way. Today, we were all highly motivated. It was easy for us to go out there and keep pushing, keep grinding. But no, I so happened to fall into some things that other guys have done the last 3 weeks. We just keep fitting our gaps and keep being a sound defense, and it shows up. And I just got lucky today.
Words can't really describe the feeling you get down there in the end of that end zone. Because we had a game-winning touchdown 2021, which to date, well, maybe not anymore, but was the best day of my life regarding the sports. And then to have another last-second game winner down there in our end zone, it's just nothing can explain it.
No, I mean, it don't matter for nobody but us in that locker room, our fans, our supporters, our coaches, our players. Those who rock with us, I mean, nobody else believed in us but us, and we came out here and we made sure everybody knew.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Well, coming full circle like that and be able to play for a guy like that, and, doing exactly what I said I would do, and doing it for a guy like that. So it's definitely a really, really unique feeling that I'm very proud of, and having that moment with him after the game, and just telling each other how much we love each other, and appreciate everything that's going on so far, and we're looking forward to moving on in the future. So it was definitely a cool moment and a cool experience.
You said there's no limits to what this team can succeed. What can this team accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, the only limits are going to be the ones we put on ourselves. So we're going to take this thing as far as we take it. So we're looking forward to that.
We've talked about the goal line stand. Now let's get into a little bit of the offense. And Dylan Gabriel, who has, I think, submitted himself as far as legacy goes. There was so much pressure and so much talk being put into what Dylan Gabriel was going to have to do on Saturday. And not only did he perform well, obviously with his legs, we'll get into that here in a second. There's going to be eventually some Heisman talk when it comes to Dylan Gabriel. He's going to be on every stat graphic that you could possibly see while you're sitting around watching football over the weekend with Oklahoma in the bye week. But let's start with the drive. Here is Dylan Gabriel in his own words on Oklahoma's go-ahead drive when they took over with 1:17 left on the clock.
Starting out, I saw 1:17 on the dot, and I know we're getting at the 25, so just starting to drive out right, trying to create a completion with Drake, across the middle. From there, you're rolling, and you kind of got that rhythm, that flow. And then I believe throw Jaleel on the sideline, so he gets another chunk. And, as time's dwindling, as you get to that midfield, just knowing, we can get three, within a 20-yard gain, but also, a chance to win the game. But not taking a sack is in my mind, and find a way to either first down, touchdown, or out of bounds. So after that, did get flushed, found Drake in the middle again. He gets a good chunk. Now we're in the plus territory, but I also know clock's running. We got a penalty down the sideline, so we get the plus 15. Now we're in the red zone, but I know that, or the tight zone, but now we got, near the 30 to 20 second mark. So same thing, touchdown or out of bounds. So just saw the corner clamp and then seen Nick in the back of the end zone. And, man, that's what we practice, week in and week out. And just proud of everyone coming together, controlling the chaos and just dialing it in. That's big-time football and something you dream of as a little kid. So just being a part of it is something special, especially, with all these guys in that locker room. I love every single one of them. So.
There are big moments that have happened inside the Cotton Bowl. I think just, obviously as recent as 2021 with the comeback and Kennedy Brooks scoring to retake the lead in the fourth quarter, the Caleb Williams strip that, led up to the Kennedy Brooks go-ahead touchdown. I don't know if I've ever been in that end zone where the eruption from the Oklahoma side of things was as loud as it was in the seconds after the Nick Anderson touchdown, Josh. It was truly one of those special moments. It's going to be one of the special moments of the season of Oklahoma football history. I know Gabe Eichert said that this might have been, just the drive in general was maybe the biggest drive in the history of Oklahoma football, just in terms of what it meant. What was the most surprising part of that entire drive, and to do it with no timeouts? You're up against the clock, and then all of a sudden, 2 plays in, you're past the 50, and I think, George, we both said the same thing. It's like, holy crap, they're not only are they pushing to get into field goal range, they can go score a touchdown and win the football game.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it was watching like you said, they got across midfield so quickly. You're like, well, they've got some options here. They can do a little bit, and we saw it. I mean, they ran Gabriel up the middle. They felt comfortable doing that. Guys, I mean, and I know you guys talked about it some. I am a absolute instant reaction and post game pod listener, but there is the thing I noticed was just how Jeff Lebby just called an outstanding game. I mean, I don't know any other way to say that. Like, he really was kind of in his bag the whole game. I thought really, I mean, and even when they didn't have a rhythm, I didn't think it was about, things not being there. It just wasn't quite clicking with what they were doing, but really loved it. I mean, this play to Drake Stoops. I mean, that play, he's just, you couldn't scheme a guy more open running across the middle. I mean, he just had acres of space to move into. And then, I don't know, George, I'd be interested in your perspective from the press box, because on the broadcast, when the final play, everything happened so strangely because you see Gabriel kind of duck, like he thinks that blitz is going to get him around the corner. And I didn't recognize at first what had happened. And we've already talked about the Walter Rouse block, but you couldn't see it. Like, you didn't know, why did he duck like that? Why did he kind of make that move? And then he kind of, and Eddie's shot is so perfect, because you see him kind of get down, and then you can't tell it on the broadcast, but he just jumps. He just leaps and throws the ball, and it's really hard to see. I didn't know Nick Anderson was there. My first thought when he threw the ball was, oh God, he just threw a pick. Like, that was my first reaction when I saw it. And then you're like, oh no, Nick Anderson's there perfectly, just exactly where you'd want him to be.
My perspective was, I thought he was going to get sacked. I was like, oh no, you can't take a sack here. And then when he threw the ball, I was like, oh, he's throwing it out of bounds. And then you look where he's throwing, you're like, oh, Nick Anderson's wide open in the back of the end zone. And you're like, wow, they're going to win this game. And I remember I had to get down to the field because I was like, I need to get down for the reaction. So I sprinted down the press box stairs.
Which might be one of the most athletic things done all day. I don't think that people understand the endeavor that you have to go from the press box at the Cotton Bowl, outside the stadium, to the media tunnel, which is, obviously the infamous tunnel, and then you have to go the tunnel's not short.
No, I went outside of the stadium, which is where the media elevator is, and then you can't get back in. And so I had to go up and convince the security guard, hey, I am at the game, let me in. And the guy's like, I don't think so. And I just went by him. And then I just hauled it down the stadium stairs, which apparently we weren't allowed, people in the press box were not allowed field access. So I get down to the bottom, and standing there, I forgot to tell you this part, Jada Coleman is telling the security guard, I need to be on the field because she was trying to celebrate.
You don't understand who I am.
Yes. And I was just like, I went by and I was like, hey, and I just showed my pass, and he was like, and I just jumped the fence and got on the field for the final play of the game.
God.
The Hail Mary. But yeah, but anyways, the play itself, unbelievable. And I think it speaks to Gabriel's poise the entire day. To stand there in the pocket, I mean, it's collapsing around him. He keeps his eyes in the end zone. He knows where Anderson's supposed to be, right? And so he's waiting to see. I think his first read there was actually Farouk on the other side. You see him turn his head to his right, I believe, to start the play, and then he comes back and finds Anderson. See there, he turns right. It's not there, and he stays in there and finds Anderson. And it's a great throw. I mean, because there's a guy there. He has to throw it high enough. I mean, I just, again, speaks to his poise all day to stand in there. I thought he had some really nice throws throughout the game. But for him to do that, look, we talked about it all week, right? Leading up to the game. What would he do in that environment if it came down to that type of a situation? And he went right down the field like it was nothing. It was an unbelievable performance for him.
23 of 38 for 285, had the touchdown, no turnovers, no interceptions, no fumbles. But Josh, it was what he did with his legs. We've seen really, really good quarterback performances, whether it be Baker Mayfield or, you could go all the way back to Trevor Knight if you wanted to in the Sugar Bowl. But Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, I think those are all obvious. But what Dylan Gabriel did with his legs, 14 carries, 115 yards, had the touchdown early in the game that kind of set the tone, I think built some confidence within what they were trying to do offensively. Where does this performance match up with some of these great, great performances that we've seen from Oklahoma quarterbacks over the years?
Guys, I don't know about you. It's such a tricky one to gauge for me. And I people were mad about my report card grade for him. And I think I probably was a little harsh on him as I look back on it. Because you look at it for large after that opening second half drive with Gabriel, really through the fourth quarter, there wasn't a lot that you'd say, okay, yeah, he's really doing it here. This is really clicking. But his running, like, guys, does he have the best vision on the team as a runner? Like I was talking about that, like there are backs that weren't seeing stuff the way he was seeing it. There was one, and I think it was his long run up the middle in the second half. I think it was like 44 yards or whatever it was.
Fourth quarter before the
where he is going up. Yeah, he goes up the right side, sees Andrew Rame and cuts kind of behind and underneath Andrew Rame, and then he's just in space. And you're like, I've been waiting for Javonte Barnes or any of these other guys to make a cut like this for a month now. And then all of a sudden you watch Dylan Gabriel do it. Now, I think you could make a case for Jalil Farouk because he had some unbelievable run after the catch stuff. There was some Mark Clayton, OU Texas stuff going on and watching Farouk on Saturday. But I loved just his ability to see it and be decisive with the ball. And I love that wrinkle. And I know a lot of people after the game were trying to say, oh, you didn't run the ball that well, Josh. It was all scramble plays. No, it wasn't. The vast majority of that was called run that they hesitated and they were super patient in the way they let the block set up. It's what we've been talking about for months with the OU run game, just finding the right timing and the pacing to all of it. It was it felt like, guys, they've been working on that for a few weeks. That all looked really clean.
I was just about to say, it's a credit to Jeff Lebby because it felt like they unleashed something that they've been holding back the entire, first 5 games. We've said it time and again, where's the run game? Where's the run game? And it seemed like they opened it up. Now, I still have some concerns because they're still not running the ball very well with Major or Tawi Walker, who, by the way, Tawi Walker is their best running back right now. But Dylan Gabriel, if they are able to do that with him and open up some other stuff, then maybe that's the secret to it. Now, I don't think they need to do it every single week because he might get hurt doing that, but it definitely was a credit to Jeff Lebby they ran like 5 or 6 quarterback draws in the game, and they all worked for the most part.
Well, and something that, probably you have to be an Oklahoma fan that was really paying attention to the ball game to realize, and Josh, this is where I think it becomes interesting. I want to continue the Dylan Gabriel conversation because the Heisman stuff is going to come. But before we get there, Caden Green, left guard. I don't think that was something like, and Andrew Rame said it at the beginning of at the end of the game in the postgame stuff to me. He runs out there for that final drive. He looks to his right. It's Caleb Schaefer, who is a transfer, obviously, from Miami, Ohio, and he has a true freshman in Caden Green to his left. Who has, seemingly kind of taken over that left guard role. Did they run the ball better when Caden Green got in there on Saturday?
There was no question to me. I thought there was the play, and it's so unfair but we're all like this. Like there's certain plays that just etch in your memory. And there was one early in the game when Troy Everett is manned up on Tavondre Sweat, and Tavondre Sweat just blows him up. You could tell he was a couple yards deep. And again, Troy Everett, we knew it, guys. 1-on-1 against that monster. That's not a fight you expect Troy Everett to win. I don't blame him for that. That's an impossible ask, especially in a run situation. And I can't remember how that play played out. I think Sweat forced it wide and ended up going for no gain or something. But then Green came in, and I almost want to say it was another one of those Gabriel draws where Green is literally driving Sweat out of the play. And and again, I'm not saying that he won all those battles and he fixed everything, but he showed you stuff where you're like, okay, this guy's got to be getting more snaps. And that's why they left him out there, because he was absolutely helping that offensive line be better. And it's kind of the same stuff. And for the same reasons that we talked about with Savion Byrd, he's just bigger, got a bigger base. He can when he sets his butt down, he's going to be harder to move. And Caden's a guy that we talked about through his recruiting, Eddie. Like, he changed his body a lot. He's been a weight room guy. He's only gotten stronger, obviously, working under Jerry Schmidt. So I think you're seeing a guy that's more physically capable. Now, what they're going to do at right guard, I think we're still checking around a little bit on McCade's situation, but I hear some hope there. I think
better
maybe
than
that's not
better
as bad
than
as,
anybody could have thought when they bring out
Yeah.
when they make the motion over to the sideline and you realize that they're bringing out the air cast and then they're bringing in a golf cart. I mean, I thought he broke his leg. I thought he broke his leg or broke his ankle or something. But I think we've kind of all heard the same thing that I don't think it's worst case scenario by any means for McCade Matower.
Yeah, no, I think you'll see him again this regular season,
Which is incredible.
It's not at all what I thought was possible. So I do think I don't think he's going to be ready the next time OU's on the field, but I think it's definitely possible he'll be ready. Maybe end of the month kind of thing is what I've kind of gathered.
Oh, I think that the bye week for Oklahoma, when you talk about coming out of the OU Texas game and as physical as that game was played, on top of the injury stuff, it comes at a perfect time. Now, as good of the news is for McCade Matower, we'll find out on Monday night when we talk to Brent Venables. I don't think that they're getting good news back on Andre Anthony, which just absolutely sucks for the kid that had kind of become a breakout star for Oklahoma offensively. The good news is that wide receiver room does seem deep. I just don't know, like when you're talking about having to replace somebody like Andre Anthony that had been so vital to Oklahoma's deep passing game through the first 5 games, and he had some big catches on Saturday as well. That will be interesting. I could envision a scenario where, the unfortunate news on Monday night is that Andre Anthony's going to be sidelined for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's my impression as well, Eddie. I've heard the dreaded 3 letters of ACL a couple of times, so we'll have to see what that's going to be, and maybe we're wrong. Hopefully we are. That's one of those reports you absolutely want to have wrong, but it doesn't sound like the prognosis is good there. But you're right, Eddie. I mean, like we talked, all season, and I know it's something George has mentioned and I've talked about. There's a lot of progression, like you're seeing, okay, the Cincinnati test kind of gave them this test. Well, this is the next step where okay, you are getting a time off at a perfect moment. We know Danny Stutzman's been fighting off stingers. Obviously, Gentry Williams has had his various issues, just kind of staying healthy with several little nagging things. How does Brent Venables navigate this? How do you keep the team, hey, guys, we still have work to do. We've still got a lot in front of us. But at the same time, we're going to rev down here just a little bit and let some of our guys that need some rest, need to let their bodies get better, we're going to let them have that time.
And you think the national narrative around Oklahoma this week, I mean, so many people talking about them, we're talking about the college football playoff. People already saying the rematch, who's going to win the rematch with Texas. Danny and Jaron go and get Texas, tattoos on their legs. Just hilarious. And then also, and we want to get into this, Eddie, the Dylan Gabriel Heisman talk.
Yeah.
That's going to be full go the rest of the season. Every week, he is going to be brought up in the Heisman race.
Listen, do I think he's going to win the Heisman? No, I don't. Unless something happens out west to Caleb Williams, he's the best player in the country. But I will say he's going to be a part of every stat graphic that is put together with the Heisman talk. He's going to be in line. If Oklahoma runs the table, he's going to be in New York City. I have no doubts about that. It will be interesting to see how this offense continues to come together. It seems like each week they're taking steps, and it was definitely something that was talked about after the game down in Dallas. Can Dylan Gabriel win a Heisman Trophy in 2023?
I'm a big believer in God bringing everything full circle, and I think just in general, when you step away from the game, it puts into perspective how beautiful it is and how gracious it is, and you can never take that for granted. And it was totally different, a different feeling. But man, this is Team 129, and this is what we're all about. And just continue to get better and pushing one another. I look this guy Danny in the eyes every single day at practice, and just him pushing me as a leader, as a friend, and everyone in that facility. I love how much they love this team, and that means a lot to me.
Jeff, I saw you and Dylan embrace after the game for quite some time. What did that moment mean for you and him?
Yeah, it means everything. That's what it's all about to me. So he's a guy that has continued just to stick to the plan and understands what it means to be the quarterback here, and wants to fight his butt off to put us in position to win football games and chase championships. So he's doing that right now. We got to continue to get better, but man, just so happy for him.
I've been saying this since day one, since I met him. He's one of them guys that bring it day in, day out, consistent, great leader, and I'm going to keep saying it. He deserves the Heisman this year, so I'm going to keep promoting that till he gets it.
There's no doubt Dylan's, he's one of the best in college football and is deserving of the praise he's been given. And he'll be the first one to tell you, his main goal is to be as good of a leader as he can and do his part, 1 of 11 on the offense. He's been amazing. And again, Dylan is a smart guy. He realized you just continue to take care of business, continue to improve, show up every day with the same mindset, a level of consistency. All that stuff takes care of itself at the end. But, man, he's an assassin, no doubt about it.
I'll say this, it's not my main focus. I'm focused on, heading into this bye week and getting better, watching the tape and finding ways to get better, and then, taking it 1 week at a time. And I think as you do that, the rest will take care of itself. And I'm a big believer in that. I know that's the forefront of what we're all about. So just taking it 1 week at a time and staying present, that will take care of itself.
Josh, I want to get into a little bit of recruiting and how Oklahoma can kind of build momentum from the weekend that was. Anytime you beat Texas, I think there's going to be a lot of talk about it. But real quick, he submitted himself as far – I find the Dylan Gabriel angle in this game so fascinating for the fact that we spent so much time talking about I think he's playing well, but can he do it against a good defense? He has cemented himself as far as legacy goes at Oklahoma with this win. This is something that's going to be talked about. Every time Dylan Gabriel's name's brought up is the drive and the way that he played against Texas in his final outing at the Cotton Bowl. And sure, they could play again in Dallas or over in Arlington over at Jerry World for the Big 12 Championship. But that performance is something that, truly like legends and things that are talked about in the history of Oklahoma football, that's how you kind of put your name in that discussion.
Eddie, you and I are baseball guys. I'm a huge Sandlot fan. I grew up on that thing, and that whole thing with Babe Ruth, the legends never die. Like that's a play that, that college kids that were at that game are going to be telling their grandkids about. They're going to talk about that drive forever in the state of Oklahoma. That's just one of those things that Dylan Gabriel and guys, it's interesting because it becomes – last year, people couldn't stop talking about Oklahoma because of how bad it got, the 6 and 7, and how terrible that was. Well, now Oklahoma gets to enjoy the rare role of Oklahoma's the underdog. They're coming out of nowhere. Oklahoma doesn't get to live that life because you guys talked about it in the postgame. You're Oklahoma. You win games like this. This is what you do. But now with no expectations from anybody outside of that locker room, any real trophy type aspirations, they get to be the plucky underdog that everybody loves to talk about. And Dylan Gabriel being the, 5'0" 100. He's the Rudy of all, you look around all these great college quarterbacks. I was looking at some of the stats, he's got more aerial yards per attempt than Bo Nix at Oregon, who's, just been lighting up, frankly, a bunch of terrible defenses so far. We'll see how that kind of remedies itself this week. But yeah, there's no question. He is part of the Heisman conversation. I agree. I don't see the path where he wins it. But, if you tell me he's in New York, I'm not surprised at all. If Oklahoma goes, I would say even 11-1, and he plays like he's played so far, he's going to be in New York. That will happen just because, like I said, the storyline is great. People will love talking about him, and he plays for one of the most prestigious programs in the country.
A far cry from what this thing was here coming out of the SMU game when people wanted Jackson Arnold to take over at the quarterback position. Real quick, fun, factoid about the movie industry. Benny the Jet was actually on an acid trip when he saw Babe Ruth, and that just got cut out of the movie. That must have been on one of the, director's cuts, if you will. So as far as recruiting goes, it's not, something that we talk a whole lot of in season about, but there are some decisions that are coming up for Oklahoma prospects, and that starts on Thursday, correct, Josh, with the number 1 player in the UK, which is kind of interesting and fun to talk about.
I thought you were going to go with number 1 player in the country. Well, see if the algorithm was really going to hit us there.
But all I was trying to do is avoid having to say the young gentleman's name.
Daniel Akinkunmi. Yeah, it helps to watch as much soccer as I do, Eddie. That gives me a little bit of a cheat code sometimes. But this is a guy, again, that Oklahoma when things this summer didn't go as well as they wanted with a few targets, missed a few guys, they kind of went out and looked. I mean, and they scoured the country and apparently the world looking for offensive linemen. And this is a guy that you watch some of his clips. He's done some camps here in the States, and you're like, wow, that's a powerful guy. Like, that's a big-bodied, athletic guy that can move around. And, I mean, when he, assuming it goes as I've predicted it will, which I've had a prediction in for him for a while, if it goes with Oklahoma, there is a lot to like there. I mean, Bill Bedenbaugh is absolutely getting a raw ball of clay, a guy he's going to have to work with, not a guy, that you're like, not a Caden Green that's going to come in and be ready to help in day one. I don't think that's very likely. And if you told me it's his redshirt sophomore year before he's really ready to go, I could believe that too. But you talk about a guy with natural tools, not surprisingly, a lot of soccer in his background. He's got those feet. He can move around, very light, but at the same time is not the, we see so often like, oh, this guy came over from basketball and he's learning to play and he doesn't have that streak in him. You watch him block guys. Like, this is a kid that, frankly, I'm sure 2 years ago would have never dreamed any of this was possible. And now, like, something he has decided he's told me, I want to be the best lineman ever. Like, that's what he sees it as. And again, I know that's bold talk, but it's more about, this is a kid that has big goals and he's very mature. He understands what he's got to do. And he's kind of playing against the odds. Like, he knows that this chance was very unlikely. And so for him to get it, I think he's a kid that will take every opportunity given to him to be a very good player. And, you look at guys like Ben Powers, Drew Samia, some of those guys like that have that mindset that will buy into what Bill preaches. It's worked out pretty well for those guys. And I don't want to get too crazy, but I see a lot of potential in him.
What about Michael Boganowski? He announces actually during the recording today that he will be making an announcement October 19th, number one player out of the state of Kansas. I'm sure that going down to the Cotton Bowl, is it a coincidence that he makes this announcement, 24 hours or 48 hours after the game gets over? Where does Oklahoma kind of stand with that? That was somebody that they were already a major target with.
I think for those who well remember the Peyton Bowen situation and kind of what the dynamics were there, I think there's some very real comparison there. I have felt for a while that Michael really likes Oklahoma. There's a lot of comfort there. He really likes Brandon Hall. But at the same time, the situation with, I think his family would like him closer to home. There's a lot of connection to Kansas State. And I think Florida State has made things interesting at times. But it's really hard to ignore the timing of Kansas State goes to Stillwater, lays an egg. There's no other way to say that. And Oklahoma wins maybe the best game of the college football season to date in Dallas. And then, a few days later, he's making a decision. I think that bodes well for Oklahoma, but we're going to have to see because recently Oklahoma makes the offer to Reggie Powers, the safety out of Ohio that was a Michigan State commitment, backed off of that after the whole Mel Tucker situation. So there's a lot kind of in play here, and we'll have to see what Oklahoma thinks their numbers are like. But again, guys, they go land him, and one of the unheralded guys of this class, of this staff, when Brent Venables made all his hires, was Brandon Hall. And we keep talking about the safeties and how well they're playing and the recruiting that's going on. Brandon Hall deserves a lot of credit.
No doubt about it. Josh, we appreciate you. Real quick before we get out of here, this has been a lot of positives. I get that. It's easy to talk about all the positives. Two things. OU has a kicking and punting problem. You can't overlook the block punt. Josh Plaster wasn't great during the game. They got to get that figured out over the next 2 weeks before they take the field against Central Florida, which is an 11 a.m. kickoff. Thanks a lot, Fox, or ABC. It's ABC. I get it.
Big 12.
Whatever. Thanks a lot, Big 12, for that BS time slot. But they got to get that figured out. And, you don't want to ever be in the situation, but I think both of us talked about this on Saturday, George. The Hail Mary defense, probably it's not the easiest thing in the entire world. I get that. That looked a lot easier than it needed to be for Texas. Although PJ Adebawore was close to just sacking Quinn Ewers and the ball never getting off. But I think everybody's heart skipped a beat when the ball gets to the goal line, and it was like, are they there?
That ball hung up in the air, and you were like, that looks possible. Like that doesn't, usually you're like, oh, all I see is, white shirts around that orange, and that's going to be fine. But I'm with you. The ball hung up, and you were like, that doesn't create comfort. Like that feels like that's off. But yeah, I will say with the PJ pressure, I've heard from multiple people in the idiot thread already that are ready to hear me giggle about him getting pressure, because I watch that guy do stuff and it just cracks me up. Like he's such a freak of nature. But yeah, I guess it's good. It's a good problem if you're working on your Hail Mary defense. You're doing good things,
right?
If that's what you've got to address. But yeah, again, like we talked about, kind of a low contact thing that Oklahoma could work on this week as they let those bodies heal up a little bit.
They do got to figure out something about kicker, though. I don't know if that's giving Gavin Marshall more opportunity. You can't be missing 43-yard field goals, put you up by 2 scores in the fourth quarter. You just can't do it. I mean, they got away with it, but it wasn't a coincidence that he misses that kick. They get a 15-yard phantom personal foul on Trace Ford. I've watched the game back. I still don't know exactly what he got called for there, but 5 plays later, they're in the end zone. It's a tie game in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that really, truly, usually comes back to bite you just as much as the 3 turnovers came back to bite Texas on Saturday.
Yeah, the special teams were, and guys, we knew, like we thought this, if Oklahoma has one clear Achilles heel right now, I think it's the special teams. Punting hasn't been very good. Zach Schmidt's okay from 40 in. He's reliable, but anything beyond that, it's shaky. Now they do have a commitment from Liam Evans, the kicker from Moore, that I think is a good kicker.
Hell of a leg.
What's amazing, guys, is you look at the kid at Arkansas who was at Southmore. And just got no attention and has done a really nice job for Arkansas in the kicking game. And it's just a question of if Oklahoma is ever going to see fit to really use a scholarship on the kicking game anymore. Yeah. That doesn't seem to be their model, and that's okay. But you need as many bodies in that kicking room as you can get to find a guy who can do the job and maybe either eventually earn the scholarship or just OU will take care of him in the NIL game.
That was another thing, too. Like the reverse that they tried that ended up getting called back in the first quarter, you're already getting good field position because of the unsportsmanlike conduct in the end zone. I don't know. If it works out, it's great.
It would have worked if it was just backwards, which I still, watching the replay, it was so close to being backwards. But my takeaway was get Petaway the ball more. Was my takeaway. Get him on the field,
and he very well could with the injury to Andrell Anthony. He's not necessarily an outside guy like Andrell was, but maybe this gives him more opportunity to get out onto the field. There's going to be plenty of bodies at the wide receiver position that are going to be trying to get more snaps, trying to take advantage of somebody else's misfortune.
Oh, absolutely. Guys, you look at Jaden Gibson. He was inches away from a couple of big plays in that game.
The long play down the OU sideline, that would have been one of the catches of the year for Oklahoma. It was a very well-thrown ball, and he damn near brought it down.
Yeah, and again, I love the Terrence Brooks kid at corner for Texas. I think he's a really good player. He got there early. There's a reason Jaden couldn't make that catch. He went to go with his right arm, and Brooks has just got a hand around that right bicep, and he couldn't make a play. So, it's not his fault. And again, it's bang, bang. I'm not like, oh, it's pass interference. That's not going to get called plenty of times because it was really well timed by Brooks how he did it. But at the same time, you look at it from a shot-by-shot slow motion, Gibson did, it was going to be either one-handed or not at all.
No doubt about it. Very good. Oklahoma's at the midway point of the season. They are now 6-0, and believe it or not, in the driver's seat of the Big 12, looking to get back to Arlington and maybe some bigger possibilities as they will start this thing back up on October 14th against Central Florida. Josh, thank you for joining us on a Monday for a little bit of an Oklahoma-Texas rewind. George, I'd say thank you for coming, but you were going to be here anyways. And we will talk to you. It's an interesting kind of schedule the rest of the week because we are going to talk to Brent Venables on Monday. We'll probably still try to do some type of practice report on Tuesday afternoon. So that is tomorrow afternoon if you're watching this on Monday evening. But a little bit of a light week in terms of media just because of the bye week and things like that. But there will be plenty to get into here moving forward throughout the week. Make sure you're subscribed to Soonerscoop.com on 3, obviously, but right here on YouTube for all of your Soonerscoop.com needs from the Soonerscoop.com studios. I'm just rambling now,
Yeah,
and it's
you
time
are.
to go. Bye-bye.